Brothers in faith, grace to you and peace from God our Father and from our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Increase our faith, the disciples asked Jesus. And I kind of like that they said that because it tells me they felt the same inadequacy about faith that I sometimes feel. Do you feel that sometimes? Do I have enough faith? I mean, how much faith do you need? And that's the trouble with faith, isn't it? It's so hard to quantify. At least with the commandments, you can kind of keep track of how many people you've killed or whether you've committed adultery, right? I mean, you can keep score of that. But faith, it's either too easy or too hard. Over 80% of Americans say they believe in God. That's faith, I guess. But only about a quarter of those who say they believe ever go to a church. Is that enough? On the other hand, faith can be too hard. How can I ever know if I really have enough of it? What if I doubt just a little? Is that too much? And so the disciples asked what I ask, maybe you ask, Jesus, increase our faith. And then Jesus says, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, which is pretty small, you could say to this mulberry tree, but be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jesus. That's really helpful. In other words, faith is impossible for people like me because I haven't moved a mulberry tree in a long time. And yet, the disciples have been doing just that, haven't they? Remember in Luke chapter 10, Jesus sent them out 2 by 2 to preach the good news, to heal the sick, and to cast out demons. And they were so excited when they came back because they actually did what Jesus sent them out to do. They cast out demons, they healed the sick, and people even listened when they preached. I mean, go figure. Who expected that? How much more evidence do you need of faith than that? They'd done it without even knowing they had it. It was more like if Jesus said, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, and you do, you could say whatever you want and it would happen. And it did. Remember? We worry about faith. Do I have enough? As if faith is something we can muster up in our hearts and God rewards us for it or something. And then Jesus tells a story that pops even that balloon, the parable of the servants. You just heard it. Even if a slave works his head off, gets everything right, he's still just doing his duty. He certainly doesn't deserve any special reward. He's still just a slave. We don't have personal slaves anymore, at least most of us. Maybe some of you do. But we have similar expectations. When you go to the grocery store, and the cashier takes every item and scans it perfectly after standing on her feet all day, and then she bags your groceries and maybe even carries them out to your car. You don't consider that anything special or out of the ordinary, do you? She's just doing her job. And you might say thanks, but you're certainly not going to give her any medals, probably. So it is with faith. Even if our faith is increased, and we do uproot mulberry trees and plant them in the sea, we're just doing our job. Nothing special. Certainly nothing to impress God so much that He's going to send you to heaven or something like that. So what do we do? Jesus' parable of the slaves makes it sound like faith is a life of hard, thankless work followed by no reward at all. Sounds really great, doesn't it? I mean, why would anyone sign up for that duty? The good news is we do not have faith in order to get to heaven. Rather, we have faith because Jesus has already given heaven to us. Our Lord's gift creates faith in our hearts. And so the parable of the slaves is not telling us how to get to heaven. It's describing our response to a gift already given. In other words, the cashier doesn't serve you to get a job. She serves you because she's already been given the job. And so also we serve in response to Jesus, not to earn His favor. I don't know, I'm kind of lazy and I look for, ways out. And so I ask things, I would ask a question like this: well, if I've already got it, why should I do that? Why worry about the work, right? It's already been given to me. And to say that kind of misses the gift that we've been given. It would be like a parent saying, well, I already got the baby I wanted. Why do I want to do all that work to take care of it? I love watching new parents. Do you? You guys, some of you are grandparents. You love watching them, don't you? And they finally get pregnant with a child that they've been praying for, and suddenly, instead of out, they used to go out partying on Friday nights, and instead on Friday nights they're buying cribs and diapers and pajamas and strollers. I mean, isn't there something good about that? And instead of partying or dancing, they're painting the bedroom, setting up furniture. Not to mention enduring morning sickness and lower back pain and labor. Could anybody pay you enough to do things like that? But those parents, they do it all for free, right? And they're glad to do it. Why? And then the child is born, and their life is now consumed with diapers and getting up 4 times a night and crying and burping and spitting up in the car and car seats, and one of them has to quit their job to stay home with a little guy, and on it goes like that. And finally, 5 years later, they're looking forward to 5 years later, when this big yellow school bus comes and takes their child away and they can be free for a while. And the big yellow school bus comes and they put their child on the school bus and they cry. Right? Why? How much would you have to pay a person to do all that work? And they pay for the privilege to do it willingly, gladly. And after a hard night of teething, they don't expect any reward, because the gift has already been given to them. And they're only doing what any parent would do, right? That's how it is with Jesus. He's given us everything. And then on top of giving us everything, He gives us a chance to be a part of His mission. What more could we ask for? We worry, increase our faith, so we can maybe earn Jesus' favor. Sometimes we forget. And the truth is, He's already yours, given to you in baptism like a husband is given to a wife. He's already yours, nurturing you at the Lord's table like your parents nurtured you at their table. He's already given you every good gift He has, and He's got lots more to give. And the rest of your life is lived in response to that gift given. Serving Him gladly, willingly. Nothing special. What else would I ever want to do? Bob had been married to Ione almost 50 years by the time I met him. I can't remember how long they were married, but he could. This is the truth. On any given day, he could tell you not only how many years they've been married, but how many months, weeks, and days Ione has been his bride. Try that next time when you get home. And he would remind her the 10th of each month that it was their anniversary, and he would tell how many years, how many months. He never forgot. His bride, he called her, even after almost 50 years. They used to be famous all over the county for their dancing skills. They danced tirelessly and gracefully every Friday and Saturday night. Even after long hours of farming and trucking, Bob never missed an opportunity to dance with his bride. Until the day she began to lose her graceful steps. And they thought at first it might be the flu or an inner ear infection. They went down to the cities and she was diagnosed with MS, and their dancing days were over. And Ione, she encouraged him to dance with other women. She knew how he loved it, and there were lots of single women who needed a dance partner. But Bob always politely refused. He would only dance with his bride. And as much as he loved it, he never danced again. at least not on the dance floor. With MS, a new kind of dance began, a dance of caring for his bride. And so each day he'd get up early, do chores, and then he'd come in and get her dressed and cleaned up for the day. And then he'd make her breakfast and clean up after that. Then he'd go to work. He'd come back at dinner and supper, kiss his bride, prepare a meal, and clean up. And then in the evening, he and his bride would go play cards at the neighbors. He'd get her dressed up, help her walk to the car, and then he'd teach their friends to take whatever time it takes her, whatever time she needed to arrange her cards with her numb fingers. And they'd talk, and they'd laugh, and they'd have a wonderful time. And then late at night, usually too late, he'd bring her home, help her get undressed, and ready for bed. 25 years he did that. Willingly, gladly for his bride. And wild horses could not have kept him from doing that dance with her. And Bob was pretty sure any husband would do the same. Nothing special, you know. Then one day, Bob got sick, and the roles were reversed. Ione sat by his bed and held his hand, and when the neighbors came over to pay their last respects, Ione would get them playing cards with Bob like they always did, and they'd talk and they'd laugh and they'd have a wonderful time, so that as they went home, the neighbors wondered, well, who was comforting who there? In his last weeks, Bob worried about the half dozen times in 50 years that he had snapped at his bride. And with tears, he asked her forgiveness, as if those moments of irritation would cancel out 50 years of faithfulness. And she, for her part, couldn't even remember him, but she forgave him anyway. And then she tried to thank him for all the years that he had cared for her, all the happy times they'd spent together. And Bob said, "Today's the 22nd, isn't it? 54 years, 10 months, and 12 days ago, you became my bride, and you gave me the privilege of being your husband. Every day, every moment, even the hard ones, have been such a gift to me. I only did what any man would do for a bride like you." Jesus said, "If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you." Followers of Jesus, they don't see it, but they move mulberry trees every day. So do you. I've seen it. And as far as they know, they're just doing what anyone would do for their Lord. What a gift. What a gift to serve.